5 Live Formula One.
The first points of the weekend have already been handed out, but the title fight can still be decided in tomorrow's Grand Prix. It's been the Oscar Piastri show so far, but can Lando Norris strike back this evening, or will Max Verstappen find another gear in his Red Bull? Welcome to qualifying for the Qatar Grand Prix. It's Harry Benjamin with you in commentary, and keeping track of things down on the ground in the heat and the humidity is Jenny Gow.
Thank you so much, Harry. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. Yes, the sun has very much set now. Dark skies above us. Loads of floodlights shining down, and the drivers just being announced to the fans. You might be able to hear them in the background. Full grandstands, and why not? Because this could be a deciding weekend when it comes to the championship. Lots of people wanting lots of different permutations, but mostly they just want a good fight out on track. And I'm just about to get run over by the safety car, so I'm on my toes because it's very close to me, but that's okay. He's just reversing into the garage that I'm standing in. 19 degrees centigrade here, so I'm sure for those of you at home in the UK you'll be quite envious of me, but I can tell you I've got my cardi on. It's a bit colder than you seem to imagine, and as soon as it gets dark in the desert, of course, it gets a bit colder. The good news is less blustery than it was before in the sprint race, but how will that affect qualifying? The next hour is going to be very dramatic.
It certainly will. So easy, as we've already seen from sprint qualifying yesterday. One small mistake can ruin your lap, and then you are on the back foot. But pole here, very important. In the commentary box with me is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Saw a lack of overtaking in the sprint race earlier on, which further emphasises how crucial it is to get pole position here under the lights in Qatar. Just as a FYI, the championship permutations are Lando Norris is champion in the Grand Prix if he wins the race. So pole position will go some way to easing the pressure for Norris.
Yeah, quite a long way. I think that would go, actually. Not, both in terms of doing everything he can to maximise the weekend from here on in, but also his biggest risk is not finishing a race. That's the biggest risk to his championship challenge here, because if he does find himself a little bit further back, he's in a pack of people who don't have the same things at stake as him. They will be able to get their elbows out going into the first couple of corners. And we just watched the F2 race that's just happened on the circuit about an hour ago, and there was a number of cars going very, very close, wheel to wheel, finding themselves off the circuit. We know the curbs here are really quite punishing and can damage a car very easily. So those are the kind of things that Lando doesn't need. If he finds himself on pole position, that's the very best way to stay out of all of that trouble.
3 different pole sitters in the 3 iterations of the Qatar Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton on pole in 2021 looks a far cry from achieving that this weekend. Max Verstappen last year, and George Russell, who inherited pole position really thanks to a one-place grid drop last time out for Max Verstappen in 2024, as there was a bit of carnage going on between the Sauber, the Williams, the Haas, all filing out of their garages into what's really become, Andrew, a race into the pit lane before we even get going out on track.
Yeah, there's always a bit of shenanigans going on, isn't there, as they jockey for track position because of the sort of complicated rules about making a space in the pit lane rather than making a space out on track. There's a lot hanging on this qualifying session, Harry. We saw in the sprint earlier today almost no overtaking, particularly at the front. DRS zone didn't really work. The drivers were finding that in dirty air behind another car, they lost a lot of performance, and of course that wears the tyres out quickly on a track that is always already very demanding on tyres. So pole position is even more important here than you might imagine, and that's why there's a lot of tension going into this qualifying session between the 3 championship contenders, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen.
It certainly are, and if you are just joining us, Pirelli have imposed a maximum mileage limit on all sets of tyres of 25 laps, but overnight did some investigations and found some quite deep cuts into the tyres following Friday's running, so that is being constantly evaluated, particularly after the sprint race earlier on today. So we'll keep you in the loop as and when we hear any more on that. But cars lining up in the pit lane with just about 10 seconds to go before we get the green light on. 2 out of the 3 Qatar Grand Prix have been won from pole position. The last 3 have been won from the front row as the green light comes on at the end of the pit lane, and Q1 is underway, and it's Alex Albon who leads the charge. The Williams driver heads out of the pit lane and feeds into the right-hander. That is turn 1. And a tricky track this, Mark, as we've said, and one thing that all the drivers have to watch out for, particularly in these early stages, is those pesky track limits.
Yeah, track limits have caught a number of people out. There are even penalties in the sprint race for repeated offences. So yeah, that's definitely going to be an issue. The whole track is really quite punishing. It's a tricky track. It's one that the drivers absolutely love, because when you get a lap right around here, it flows really nicely from one corner into another, but it's also really high speed. So if you do have a little moment, if you have something where you just step offline or you get a snap of oversteer, it can bite you really quite quickly and send you off the circuit. And as we've already mentioned, when you go off the circuit, there are gravel traps, they hurt, there are punishing curbs that are quite aggressive and can damage a car quite quickly. So staying on the track is not just for the obvious reasons of getting a decent lap time, but actually in the wider sense of looking after your machinery is really important here.
Yeah, it's one of the worst tracks for racing, but it's one of the best tracks for driving. There's some really fast corners here, long corners, the kind of demanding corners that drivers love. It's almost completely featureless because it's very flat in the desert, and getting your bearings to where the car is on the track when you're watching is quite tricky. But look out particularly for the sequence of fast right-handed corners at 12, 13 and 14. They are really quite something, and even on television you get a real sense of the speed of a Formula 1 car through there.
Certainly do, as Carlos Sainz gets up to just over 300 kilometres an hour before he hits the brakes going into turn 1 on his first flying lap in the Williams on the soft tyre. While he does that, let's check back in with Jenny.
Some drivers have hurried out, others are taking their time, and actually it was Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen who took their time. They've just gone out in file, and I believe where I'm stood, it's hard to see, but I think that Oscar Piastri has gone out, and I believe Lando Norris is still in the garage, yet to go out, and I can hear his engine just getting turned over, so he will be out in a couple of secs.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, we saw a lot of traffic problems in the early part of sprint qualifying yesterday, so certainly I'm bracing myself for some more angry team radio messages. The standings are then coming in to the rest of this weekend following the sprint. Lando Norris now only has a 22-point advantage over Oscar Piastri. He managed to close that gap slightly. Max Verstappen sits 25 points adrift at the top of the title, top of the championship, with 371 points to his name. Those are our 3 title protagonists vying for a strong qualifying as Carlos Sainz completes his first flying lap and will go to the top with a 1:22.354. Now, whilst Piastri seems strong round here, so too for Norris. Max Verstappen has really actually struggled so far, but the good thing about a sprint weekend is, part from A in the rules, it actually opens up again after the sprint race, so they can make a few tweaks to the setup. Can Verstappen fight back?
Well, it is going to be interesting, isn't it? We've seen this before, very recently with Verstappen in Brazil, where he had to make considerable changes because the way the car turned up for the weekend just wasn't to his liking. It felt a little bit like that here. There was a lot of moaning, a lot of complaining, but it's all relative because Max Verstappen, he was never very happy with his car, yet he was still very close to the McLarens and the Mercedes of George Russell, and ended up finishing the sprint in 4th place. Didn't get left behind. He was sort of on par with those guys. What he's looking for is something really special, of course. He needs to try and stay in this championship fight down to the wire in Abu Dhabi, and to do that he needs a really strong result. He needs to outperform the 2 McLarens, so he'll be looking for something special. So they will have made changes in Brazil, that race I was just referring to. The gap between sprint and qualifying, where it came out of parc fermé, they made wholesale changes. It didn't work, and on that occasion they had to actually pull it out of parc fermé after a really disastrous qualifying, start from the pit lane, and then finally only by Sunday morning did they hit the sweet spot with their setup. So let's hope they've got there a little bit earlier this weekend.
Max Verstappen on a lap at the moment, flying through the first sector, fastest of anybody. This is the sound you can hear. One other person to keep an eye out as well in this qualifying session will be the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. He likes it round this track, stuck it on the podium back in 2021, then in an Alpine, had a brilliant qualifying for the sprint. Best start in any format of the year for him and the team in 4th position. And right now he is the fastest time with a 1:29.80. But Max Verstappen now coming around the final corner, crosses the line, 0.004 of a second adrift of Fernando Alonso, slots into second.
Yeah, we're already getting some early signs here, Harry, aren't we? Alonso still quick after that sprint qualifying. Often he falls back through a sprint weekend because he gets to the limit very much quicker than most other drivers. Max Verstappen, though, hasn't been able to equal the Aston Martin's time, which is not a good sign for the Red Bull. And Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, only 8th fastest. They've had an absolutely dire weekend so far. Lewis Hamilton's done a lap 2. He's 15th. It looks like Ferrari are still in all sorts of trouble.
And Leclerc, not just 8th fastest, 9th now, a second off the pace. I mean, that is enormous, isn't it, in qualifying mode at this end of the season in a Ferrari. That is an absolute shocker.
It's big trouble for Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton down in 16th. He was knocked out of SQ1 in the sprint qualifying yesterday, and currently finds himself once again in that elimination zone, having qualified last on the road a week ago in Las Vegas, as Oscar Piastri goes to the top of the times with a 1:27.39 ahead of George Russell. That puts Alonso down to 3rd, with Verstappen and Tsunoda the top 5, just waiting for Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto to set competitive lap times. But I fear some track limits violations might come back to bite a few of our drivers if they haven't already.
Yeah, we're seeing replays on our screen of people running wide. So yeah, it's a circuit, of course, in qualifying where they've got the soft tyres on. They're really pushing to the limits. That's what they have to do. They're going to build up through the session towards that, but already exploring those limits. And as you said, it's a fine line here between the limit and being over that limit. And there's a number of drivers already finding that they've stepped over that mark.
Lando Norris's first lap is only good enough for 8th right now. He's 7/10 off of his teammate Oscar Piastri. Pace to find then for one of the McLaren drivers, as Stroll is now on a lap. That's the sound you can hear. Alonso, his teammate, is going again, and fastest of anybody through the first sector. 10 minutes and 50 seconds left of Q1. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just in the pit lane actually, and they've just pulled Lando Norris back, the McLaren driver, just going back into his garage. He's not happy out there, 10th at the moment, whereas Piastri is on pole. But just on them, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, both of them very unhappy with the cars, both wanting a lot of change to happen in between the sprint and this qualifying session, as Oscar Piastri just pulls up in front of me. So let's see what they can do. But Alonso, very happy with qualifying. It's just when it comes to the race, it all comes undone for him.
Yeah, it was a rather remarkable start for Yuki Tsunoda in the sprint race, which rather compounded Fernando Alonso's woes as he finds a bit more time, mainly in the first sector on his second lap around. He improves his time and goes up into second spot. Now, this is the sound of Charles Leclerc. Now, after the sprint race earlier, he said the only way, and I'm paraphrasing really, to make this car better is to change it massively. Lewis Hamilton said on the radio after languishing down in 18th for the majority of the sprint race that I don't know how we've made the car worse. It really is question marks at Ferrari right now as they search for pace, which doesn't seem to be coming.
No, they're a long, long way off. I mean, the team, reason this out by saying they switched off development on this car very, very early, but a lot of teams have done that this season with the big wholesale changes coming into the sport next year. So it's not really an excuse. I think even with the car they've got, with the technology they've got, without the upgrades, they're just still not finding a way to make it work through setup and the way that the car is both driven and engineered. So they're in a whole world of pain right now, and I think for the whole team, especially for Lewis Hamilton, he cannot wait for this season to end.
No, Liam Lawson pops up into 5th. Charles Leclerc still on this lap. Jenny.
Yeah, I spoke to Lewis Hamilton after the sprint race, and he said to me he was up until 6 a.m. this morning just trying to look and rack his brain about what they could do better, how they can improve the car. So even at this point, when development's been switched off, when he should be focusing on next year, actually he is still paying attention to this year. He still wants to get the best out of this car that he possibly can. And at the moment, his P19, that's what you get for staying up till 6 a.m. maybe.
Well, he's on another lap now. He's just gone 2/10 up in Sector 1 on Albon's time, who is currently the benchmark to get out of the elimination zone in 15th. Gasly has just set the fastest sector of anybody in the middle sector. They were right at the back in sprint qualifying yesterday as Isaac Hadjar goes to the top of the times. The track seems to be ramping up, Mark.
Yeah, it does, and it does that here because it's not an overly used circuit, and as the cars go around it, particularly with this soft tyre, more and more rubber goes down. That builds the grip levels. Gasly slots him right behind Hadjar there with just less than a tenth behind him, so very, very close. The circuit getting quicker and quicker. Leclerc's now found another half a second, but half a second from the lead in a Ferrari is still an awful long way off. Hamilton 3/10 off the pace now, so it's still a giant chunk because the leaders, the big guys, the McLarens and the Max Verstappens still haven't really set a competitive time at this stage of the session yet.
No, he's 3/10 off of Racing Bulls and an Alpine.
Yeah.
It's not good stuff in these early stages, as that's the sound of Esteban Ocon dipping a toe onto the gravel and losing lap time right now as the lap times continue to fall, though, and we're about to see a Mercedes get pinged for track limits, and Kimi Antonelli flirting with the white line in that silver arrow. Right now it's Hülkenberg, Albon, Sainz, Ocon and Colapinto, the bottom 5 drivers looking at elimination with just over 6.5 minutes left to run. Hadjar's the fastest time with a 1:26.03. Gasly, Piastri, the top 3. Then comes Alonso. Russell's the top 5. Hamilton is 6th ahead of Verstappen, who's going again and fastest of anybody through the first sector. Leclerc is 8th, back in the pit lane. Lawson and Behrman the top 10. Tsunoda's having another go too. He's down in 11th. Antonelli 12th. Then it's Bortoletto, Stroll and Norris has sunk to 15th, but he's out there again, I believe, on a new set of soft rubber. Then it's Hülkenberg, Albon, Sainz, Ocon and Colapinto.
Yeah, so Norris on that fresh soft tyre now. He is going much more quickly. He's going to get himself right back towards the top. But interestingly, yesterday, it was that first sector of the lap where he was really quite dominant, very, very quick. And actually, it's the middle sector now. Well, I know they've made some changes to that car, but it's the middle sector, certainly on this lap, where he seems strongest. So purple in that middle sector. He's just over halfway round the lap. We'll get in a few moments' time a time on the board from him, but it's going very, very well, and I think this is going to put him right back up in amongst the top few places.
Yeah, much better lap this time around coming for Lando Norris, fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Verstappen's gone top with a 1:25.34. Tsunoda half a second slower, down in 12th now as the Williams drivers improve. Sainz up to 5th, Albon currently in 9th. This is the sound of the man who leads the championship, Lando Norris, to the top of the times in Q1 with 5.5 minutes remaining, puts almost 0.4 of a second between himself and Max Verstappen, who says, when I'm downshifting and braking for the corner, the engine jumps and make the car jump a lot. It's weird. Once again, Verstappen struggling with jumping and bouncing as Piastri is next to come across the line. 77 thousandths of a second separating him from the top spot where his teammate currently lies.
Yeah, that's sort of normal service resumed again, isn't it? McLaren back at the top, and at the moment with a sizable chunk back to Verstappen, who's best of the rest. There's more time to come, still nearly 5 minutes on the clock for Q1. I think there's more to come from Verstappen. It wasn't the cleanest of laps, and as you heard him say on the radio, just still not quite happy. He was struggling with the same kind of things, making the same kind of complaints, actually yesterday in practice and again earlier on today. So he's still not happy with that Red Bull, and no changes that they've made in the gap between the sprint and this qualifying session seem to have fixed those issues, so more work to do.
Decent lap coming together for George Russell, who qualified on the front row for the sprint race earlier on today. Rounds the final corner now, keeps within track limits, heads to the line for DRS, which comes just before the start-finish line. Puts himself up into 3rd, but reports that his steering is feeling a bit funny. Had some power steering issues last time out in Vegas, said they had been fixed. But are they starting to rear its head again, or is it something else? Still enough for him to go about 0.2 slower than the McLaren drivers just behind them.
Yeah, so a little bit of a lull now. 4 minutes on the clock. There's still people out on track, but the big boys are all sitting tucked away in their garages at the moment, having set their laps. Most of those guys, I think, are safe. The circuit is going to start ramping up, so nobody outside of the top sort of 3 or 4 or 5 can really be too comfortable at this point, because we just don't know how quickly this circuit's going to get. Are the lap times going to tumble to the point where even the likes of Verstappen, Antonelli, Hadjar in 6th at the moment, are they going to be potentially under threat by the time the clock gets down to 0?
Stroll across the line from 19th, stays there as he doesn't improve in the final sector. His teammate Alonso's on another lap. Alonso is currently 11th, doing a personal best in sector 1. Lawson, Tsunoda, Ocon, Stroll and Colapinto all need big laps to get themselves through into the second part of qualifying. Charles Leclerc too is right on the brink in 15th spot, but this is the sound of Fernando Alonso as he flicks through the left-hander of turn 15, gets the car over to the left-hand side in time for the final long corner through the right-hander of 16, to the line then for Fernando Alonso on the soft tyre, and puts himself up into the top 6.
Yeah, decent lap, although I don't think that was his best lap from Alonso. I still think there's a little bit more that he could drag out of that Aston Martin. He was a little bit tentative in the final part of the lap from the little bit of onboard that I saw, but still decent. That's up into P6 and probably safe at this stage. It's the 2 Ferraris that we still keep an eye on here, who desperately need to do some work. Hamilton in 12th, Leclerc in 15th, and both out on circuit, throwing more tyres at the car, trying to get anything that can help them get through and just out of the first part of qualifying. Who thought we'd be saying that about a Ferrari at this stage of the season?
Charles Leclerc ahead right now of Lewis Hamilton on the road, but behind him in the timing tower. 15th for Leclerc, 12th for Hamilton. The 2 Ferraris in double trouble, but Leclerc at the moment is just bending his way left through turn 11 and now approaching that magnificent trio of corners, high speed through the triple right-hander at 12, 13 and 14 as you turn back on yourself before very quickly you're flicking through the left-hander of turn 15. The sparks fly from the underside of the Scarlet Ferrari. The blue Williams of Carlos Sainz gets nicely out of the way. Max Verstappen started a lap and he's fastest of anybody through the first sector. Leclerc finishes his lap now, finds time only enough for 5th, 4 tenths off of Lando Norris, who has the quickest time. Hamilton does improve, but only to 13th. He's 7.5 tenths off.
Interesting looking at Leclerc's lap. The car sparking an awful lot. We know that car, a lot of, as this modern era of Formula 1 cars does, gets a lot of performance from being as low as possible. But we also know that Ferrari have these issues and have had these issues, a little bit like McLaren had last time out, where they've been disqualified from races from excessively wearing the plank skids. So a very, very low car, which has delivered some performance for Leclerc. Was it too low?
Verstappen across the line loses time in the final sector, but 4th should be enough, unlike his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who finds himself down in the elimination zone. What can he do after such a superb showing in sprint quali? 17th up to 12th. It still might not be enough. He gets ahead of Hulkenberg, who's on a lap. Hamilton might have enough time for one final lap. Actually, I'm not sure he will. Lawson rockets up to 5th. Albon's in the elimination zone now. This is the sound you can hear as he puts Hamilton down to 16th. The Thai driver for Williams goes inside the top 10. Hamilton, Bortoleto, Ocon, Stroll and Colapinto are all still out there and all still vying to find their way through into Q2, but Lewis Hamilton is staring down the barrel at consecutive Q1 eliminations, and I don't think he's going to do it. He's not. The clock counts down to 0. Hamilton is out. Stroll is out. Bortoleto is still on a lap. Franco Colapinto crosses the line and gets himself up into 19th, but Esteban Ocon is still heading there too. Yuki Tsunoda right on the brink in 15th position as the final laps come in now. Antonelli rises up to 4th in the Mercedes as he gets going. Great lap from Pierre Gasly, who unlike his teammate will qualify up inside the top 15. Franco Colapinto gets relegated
the
to
half-time whistles blown.
P20 and last,
Newcastle yet
and
to win in
right
the
at the
Premier League
death
away
of
from home this
Q1,
season.
Bortoleto gets
only
through,
Brentford dropped
makes
more
it 2
points from winning
salvos into
positions this season than
Q2
the
at
Magpies.
the expense
It'll be a
of
tough
the
ask
Red
for
Bull
Everton
of
to
Yuki
extend that Newcastle
Tsunoda. Its
record.
usual
At the break, Mark,
service
Everton nil,
resumed
Newcastle
for the number 2 at Red Bull, ahead of Esteban Ocon in 17. Lewis Hamilton, 18, is very quickly becoming a regular feature for the 7-time world champion. Stroll 19.
You do wonder what Serena Wiegmann's learning from this. The first 3 goals, 2 for Mead, 1 for Hem, came in the space of 3 minutes and 53 seconds. England then waited a whole 7 minutes before adding a fourth. That came from Stanway, drilling in at the far post. She added another from the spot. It was a penalty awarded by VAR for a handball. So Anna Morehouse, making her debut goal today, has quite literally had nothing to do. So surely we'll see plenty of changes from Wiegmann in the second half. She's got a chance to test out a lot of new faces sitting on the England bench. At half-time, England 5, China 0.
Earlier in the Premier League, Brentford beat Burnley 3-1. Manchester City were 2-0 up at home to Leeds.
That is not going to be the case tomorrow with Yuki Tsunoda out already.
Came back to make it 2-2, but a late Phil Foden goal gave
control screen, and I see track limits for Pierre Gasly, but thankfully it wasn't on the lap
in the Championship.
Would have seen him out, but he does get dropped perilously close to a Q1 knockout, 15th in the end.
Down a couple of places. They were beaten at home by Hull. One other big story, Norwich get their first home win of the season. They beat QPR by 3 goals.
He doesn't have any pace, is what Yuki Tsunoda
Cardiff
replies
are the new leaders of League One. They beat Mansfield 3-0. Stevenage, the morning leaders, could only draw 0-0 at Wigan.
Very quickly
Walsall stay top of League 2
for Yuki
after a
Tsunoda, who
3-1
joins
win
Esteban
over
Ocon,
Bromley.
Lewis Hamilton,
In the Scottish Premiership,
and Franco
Hearts were held, so that's 3 games
eliminated
now.
from
They drew
Q1.
0-0
To be fair
at Motherwell.
to Tsunoda,
In the
it's
National
actually
League,
very close.
the Big
He's less
Four
than
at
3
top
tenths
all
behind
one,
Verstappen.
so that's
Verstappen's
Rochdale
and he's
and
out
York
in 16th.
and Forest Green
That's how
Rovers
tight
and
the
Carlisle.
pack is at the end of
All
this,
of them
final
were
year of these
winners
regulations.
today.
Just in a
I didn't
replay,
give you
which
the
I
Northern
saw in the
Irish
session
Premiership
actually.
at
I think it's George Russell ending
earlier
a
on
lap,
the full time, so they are as follows:
in the
Crusaders 0,
Mercedes,
Coleraine
so
2,
pulled over to the
Dungannon
right-hand
1,
side so that he
Larne 2,
didn't avoid,
Glenavon
it didn't
3,
get in the way of
Ballymena
anyone on
1,
flyer.
Linfield
But in
3,
doing so, he was going very
Carrick
slowly
Rangers
over the
1,
pit
Portadown 2,
exit as Pierre Gasly was coming out of the
Oscar
pits.
Piastri
So he sort of crossed
won
over the
the
line,
sprint race
went
earlier
across
in
the
Qatar.
exit
At the moment,
road,
it's
which is where
qualifying for the
Gasly was
race
coming
tomorrow.
out, and Gasly had to get on with it, and they nearly collided.
Yes, all eyes on the championship title, which could be sewn up tomorrow with Lando Norris winning. That would be enough to seal his first ever world title for McLaren. But first, it's
through
all matters
and into
qualifying,
Q2.
as you said.
In fact, the Sauber drivers, I think, are the
tips the
only
tables
ones
for
that are
Q1 ahead of
equal footing at the
Piastri.
moment in the qualifying
Verstappen also up
head-to-heads.
there and
11-11
looking a bit
as it
more
currently
improved
stands.
than he did in the sprint earlier
and
on.
both
But
getting
those
through.
outs
Here's Lance Stroll
include
out at
Lewis
19th.
Hamilton. Ferrari's road continue to elude the form, but when it comes
Stroll
to
can't
McLaren,
go faster
they
and doesn't
are back
understand
on top.
why his
Norris
teammate
first, Piastri second.
ended Q1
let's go
up
to
in
the
10th
snooker next.
position.
First day of the UK Championship.
Just to recap then, we have lost Yuki Tsunoda, who has not gone beyond Q1 at the last 2 Grand Prix. But
the sellout crowd saw 2 centuries per 6 at the breaks of the 50 in what was an entertaining match. This season, Trump has been trying out a new Q, but today he reverted back to using his old
Lewis
Q,
Hamilton,
the one with which he's won multiple tournaments. But
eliminated
why did the world number one want to experiment with the new Q?
Grand Prix.
I just felt like
Lance Stroll,
sometimes
who just heard from there, 19th, that's his 15th Q1 elimination of the season, the most of any driver. And right at the back will be Franco Colapinto, the slowest qualifier in the sprints and the Grand Prix qualifying.
I just felt like I needed some of the heavier conditions.
I haven't seen the track limits violation from Gasly, so I don't know if we're sort of giving him credit unfairly, because the lap that he did that was then deleted was a blistering lap in a car that showed nothing like that pace all weekend. So I wonder if he cut a corner. Was the track limits violation the thing that got him the extra lap time? But he pulled something pretty special out the back, because they've been nailed to the bottom of the time sheets all weekend so far.
They have, but Pierre Gasly giving them a little glimmer of hope. Start of Q2 is going to be delayed by the way. Might be to try and clear some of the gravel that may have worked its way back onto the racing line, but we haven't actually had any confirmation of the reason for it, so we will wait a little longer before we get Q2 underway with the 15 remaining cars on the grid. Indeed it is, due to gravel being cleared on the track at turn 15. So while the marshals get to work with that, we will get this session back underway in a few minutes time at 9:26 local time, so about less than 3 minutes away for that one. Word on Lewis Hamilton. Mark. I mean, as he walks away, helmet on, back to the FIA garage to be weighed. It's desolate right now, isn't it? I mean, you're part of that team. What are you feeling? What do you say anything to your driver?
It's really awkward. I mean, you know, that moment when the driver walks back into the garage after an utter disaster, it is really awkward. But I think, you know, it's really bad for Lewis, because we know how good Lewis can be, how good he is, but it's just the team is just generally really struggling as well. Lewis is finding it even harder than his teammate Leclerc, but the general performance of Ferrari right now is nowhere near where it needs to be. And I think, you know, whilst Lewis came to Ferrari hoping for some kind of magical fairy tale, he's kind of got the opposite. The one glimmer of hope, we mentioned this yesterday, the glimmer of hope that he'll be desperately clinging on to is that we rip up the rule book and write a new one for next year with brand new cars, a whole new formula essentially, and he will just be desperately hoping that that formula suits his way of driving these cars. There are such fine margins to get the best out of a Formula One car these days, particularly at the end of a stable rule set, which is where we are right now. We're looking for such tiny differences. The way you drive the car naturally, by just the smallest amount, can make a difference. So he'll hope that the way he drives a Formula One car naturally will suit next generation of Formula One cars.
Just hearing a replay and radio from George Russell.
I don't know what's going on with the steering. It's feeling dodge. Heavier in left and rights.
Heavier in left and right than the right. Yeah. Heavier in the left and the right.
So as he turns the steering one way, it feels heavy. It's power assisted, as many of us will be familiar with in our road cars, but it feels like you're getting more assistance one way than the other, or less assistance one way than the other. Typically, I would jump to the problem being something inside the steering rack itself, and unless you can prove there's a fault now, these cars are in parc ferme, they may well be able to do that. Maybe they'll swap it overnight for a steering rack of the same specification, but that's a conversation to have with the FIA.
Yeah, if you do replace it, it's got to be like for like, hasn't it? And for reliability purposes. 3, 2, 1, and the light goes green at the end of the pit lane. Q2 underway here in Qatar. We're at the Lusail International Circuit ahead of round 23 of the Formula One season, at a track that greets you with high-speed corners, a long main straight, and we're about 20 kilometres north of the capital, Doha. A track that is just over 5.4 kilometres long, 3.3 miles, 16 turns, 6 that go to the left and 10 that go to the right, with just over 91% of the season completed, according to the statistics that I was sent. We are very much at the close of this 2025 championship. Another long year in Formula One, but we still yet to crown our drivers' champion. Lando Norris is sitting pretty at the top, 22 points clear of his teammate Oscar Piastri, 25 points clear of Max Verstappen. If Lando Norris wins the Grand Prix on Sunday, he will be world champion. Or if he outscores Piastri by 4 points and doesn't lose any points to Verstappen, he will also be champion that way. Max Verstappen has always remained the outside bet and has to finish ahead of Norris in the points on Sunday to stay in the fight. But right now, after Q1, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both looking quick. It's tight between them, which is great to see, because Piastri has been in a slump of performance, and having had such an enjoyable season watching those two race equally, that McLaren have allowed them to do that. You want them both to be firing on all cylinders right at the end here.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's exactly right. It's good for the show, it's good for the fans and all the neutrals. It's also good for the team, because you don't want this to sort of peter out and fizzle out to a sort of slight anti-climax. The close of what's been a great year, I think. So the fact that Oscar is back on form here, it's a circuit that he really seems to enjoy. He really comes alive here, and McLaren have brought a car. Yes, it's worked well at almost every circuit in the season, but here it works really, really well. So you combine those two factors, they've got a very, very good chance. But having said all of that, it's still really close. George Russell keeps putting in laps that sneak him in and around those two McLarens. It's not a done deal that it's going to be a McLaren front row, and if anyone can sneak in the way, whether that's a Verstappen or a George Russell or anyone else, it just throws a cat amongst the pigeons and introduces a level of risk and uncertainty for the title protagonists.
Certainly does, but before we even get to Grand Prix Sunday, we must qualify for it, and Q2 well underway now. First laps being set. Verstappen out there at the moment. It's Albon who just dives in, having gone fastest in the middle sector, bails on the final lap and comes into the pits. So we hear the sounds of Oliver Behrman, who has been enjoying an excellent run of form. Currently 5 consecutive top 10 finishes, leading to 9 overall Grand Prix point scoring places this year, has put Esteban Ocon rather in the shade in this second half of the season, and will go to the top of the times when he crosses this checkered line with a 1:24.38. For the British driver, part of that Ferrari driver academy as well. We talk so much about the struggles for their two drivers, and nearly a big moment for Charles Leclerc as he comes through the left-hander of turn 15. Just looks like he's having to fight constantly with his machinery.
Well, he's trying everything. I mean, let's give him credit. He is literally hanging that thing over the edge of the line. You know, has to, because that's the only way he can get anything out of it that barely resembles a half-decent lap time. But it's so dancing around on the ragged edge that we had a number of moments over the course of yesterday and today where that Ferrari snaps mid-corner, runs out wide over the curbs, even into the gravel traps, and that's been a real feature of their weekend. So it's been difficult from start to finish. Doesn't look like it's getting any better, but at least Leclerc is really having a proper good go with it.
Max Verstappen out on the circuit, fastest of anybody through the final sector. First lap times to come in is Behrman, followed by Leclerc, who that lap was 3.5 tenths back on Behrman. Hulkenberg ahead of his teammate Bortoletto, 4 times to be set so far, but Max Verstappen flying at the moment, with still the majority though of drivers still to set a lap time. The one-time pole sitter here, 2-time winner around the Qatar Grand Prix track, a man that has turned around a 104-point deficit after the summer break to just 25 points with 2 Grand Prix left to run. Crosses the line, the Dutchman, to the top by nearly 3 tenths, so 1:20.142.
Yeah, a decent lap, not pace setting, I would say, as this session unfolds. We saw Oscar Piastri yesterday with his pole lap just outside of getting into the 1:19s, and there was a big snap of oversteer mid-corner for him, so he didn't put a perfect lap in. There's definitely 19s available here to the guys that hook everything up in those top few cars. That's what the 2 McLaren drivers will be looking for. It's what George Russell will be looking for. It will be what Max Verstappen is looking for too. I don't think there's going to be very much between any of them, particularly when we get down to Q3. Fewer cars on circuit, a lot more space, not having to worry about traffic anywhere near as much, more rubber down on the track as well. The times are going to start tumbling, and we could see that track record being broken again.
Someone's gone off into the gravel and left a plume of dust in the early part of the lap as Oscar Piastri makes his way through the right-hander of turn 3, builds up towards the double right-hander of turns 4 and 5, starts to come back on himself now and heads to the long left-hander of turn 6. Additional gravel laid out on the exit there. He gets very close, but not too close to it as he now carves his way through the medium speed right-hand turn 7, and now heads through the fast flicks of 8 to the left, right to the 9. Bit of traffic to overcome in the form of Max Verstappen. Piastri fastest of anybody through the first sector, bends his way through the left-hand kink of 11 before he lines the McLaren up through the triple right-hander. The papaya flashes through the Qatar Grand Prix track. Lights from the floodlights overhead illuminating Oscar Piastri as he goes fastest in the middle sector. Norris can't match him through the first 2 sectors. Both out on a lap right now as the line comes for Oscar Piastri to the top by almost half a second. A 1:19.650. Norris finding time, but not finding as much as his teammate right now.
Yeah, there you go. We said into the 19s, and Piastri is the first man to do it. I'm pretty sure that will be a new track record around here, a 19.65. Lando Norris nearly half a second down. So interestingly, in the early part of qualifying, it was Norris that was way quicker than Piastri in the early part of the lap. It was Piastri that dominated the latter stages of the lap. Norris even having his lap time deleted now for track limits, so things not going smoothly for him. But on that particular lap, what happened was Oscar Piastri dominated the early part of the lap. He got that first sector absolutely nailed, and that's a great lap time from the McLaren driver, Oscar Piastri.
Certainly is. Not good news, as you say there, for Lando Norris, whose lap time wouldn't have been what he hoped for anyway, but then it gets taken away from him, deleted for track limits at turn 10. That is a corner that's catching a lot of drivers out. So Norris on the back foot then, where pole would be so crucial here for Lando Norris. He wants an easy run to the World Championship. The win tomorrow is turning into the left-hander of 6. Charles Leclerc cannot control his prancing horse. It is trying to escape out from underneath him, and it just looks like a misery to drive.
It's more like a bucking bronco, I think, this weekend, the Ferrari, isn't it, than a prancing horse.
It's currently down in 10th position. The only Ferrari remaining is Lewis Hamilton fell by the wayside down in 18th, and it cost him a lot of time, did Leclerc, through turn 6. 0.8 of a second adrift through the middle sector on Oscar Piastri's fastest lap time. He'll complete the lap, will Charles Leclerc, but he might not want to, as the car running low. Sparks fly from the underside. One final corner to go. He's going to see off the lap with just over 6 minutes remaining. Leclerc to the line, finds time in the final sector, which highlights there was more time to be had, but that turn 6 really wasn't fun for him.
And he finished the lap because he kind of had to, even though we all saw that lap was destroyed. He absolutely ran so wide that it was an absolute. There's no way he was going to get anything representative on the board. But his previous lap was so bad that it was still worth continuing, and that's the state that Ferrari are in right now.
11th right now, and looking at elimination along with Hülkenberg, Bortoleto, Russell's down in 14th but on a lap right now, and Lando Norris, who had his lap time deleted, has worked his way, I think, Jenny, back into the pits.
He has, just waiting there, probably going to get a new set of tyres. And Piastri, he's so relieved after his win earlier on in the sprint race. And for him, this is a track that he knows, a track that he likes, a track with grip. And it's very much back to business as usual. A dip of form since the Dutch Grand Prix, but he'll be very happy with the standings and hope he can continue throughout this qualifying session.
Yeah, 6 races in a row for Oscar Piastri, not on the podium in a Grand Prix. The victory in the sprint was the first time he won in any kind of formats at the pinnacle of this sport since August this year. You've got to go back to the Dutch Grand Prix for that one. Less than 5 minutes remaining. It's Lawson, Albon, Bortoleto, Leclerc and Lando Norris with no time on the board, having had his lap time deleted for track limits, still sitting in the pit lane, building up to one final flyer from the British driver. There'll be a lot of pressure on him to make it count.
Well, there'll be a lot of pressure on him to make it count, you're right, but also he's putting himself in a really risky situation where a yellow flag could really could affect that lap, and he's only got one shot here. There are drivers running wide and going off all over the place. There's gravel being dragged onto the circuit. If anything conspires to not make that an optimal lap for Lando Norris, he could find himself in a really difficult spot here with the other guys around him in that championship already very safely through.
Just saw another look there at Charles Leclerc's big oversteer moment coming through turn 6. Norris back out on track then. No time on the boards with 4 minutes to go for the man who sits 22 points clear at the top of the Drivers' Championship and could be a day away from being crowned Formula One World Champion 2025. If he wins the Grand Prix on Sunday, he will be champion. Or if he outscores Piastri by 4 points and doesn't lose any points to Max Verstappen. But right now, Piastri and Verstappen have laps on the board. They're first and second. Norris has nothing. Russell is third, Sainz fourth, Hadjar fifth.
Prep the clear visor for Q3. Really dusty out here.
Copy that. Visor change for George Russell requested. Dusty out there. A lot of cars running out wide, bringing gravel onto the track, and with it, plumes of dust too. Hülkenberg's currently 6th. Alonso is 7th, ahead of Behrman, Gasly and Antonelli, with Lawson, Albon, Bortoleto, Leclerc and Norris all at risk with 3 minutes of Q2 remaining.
So here goes Norris then, out of the final corner to start what I'm pretty sure will be his one and only opportunity to get a decent lap on the board. We know he's got a car more than capable of putting in that sort of lap time, but he has got 14 other cars on the circuit at the same time to navigate. He's cleared a few of them already through the first couple of corners, nice and tidy, nice and safe, and that's got to be what this lap is. It's got to be safe, it's got to be risk-free to some extent, and it's got to be fast.
Clean lap needed for Lando Norris through the double right-handers of turn 4 and 5. Isaac Hadjar gets nicely out of the way as he heads through turn 6. Gets a little bit squirrely on the rear for Lando Norris. Lost a bit of time in the first sector, did Lando Norris, a 29.3. It's nip and tuck though right now. All he needs, he's got the pace there, just needs to put it all together to get one lap time in the bank and proceed through into the final part of qualifying. This could be championship defining for the British driver seeking to become the 11th British Formula One world champion in history, and he's fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Lando Norris now making his way towards the final corner. It all looks sweet, it all looks tidy. No time on the board as he crosses the line. What's it going to be? Up to second, 2 tenths off, but crucially a lap.
Yeah, that was exactly what he needed to do. It was quick. It's not quick enough to sort of threaten the pole position that will be required out of the next session, but it was exactly what he needed. It was safe and tidy, and it's got him through into the final part, which is what he needs.
Piastri couldn't improve on his own lap time, a 1:19.650, which I think would be a new track record. The absolute record at the moment is 1:25.20. Verstappen set that last year in Q3, but times could tumble as we get to the next segment of qualifying, which is less than 1 minute away. Gasly's inside the top 10, absolutely flying right now. Antonelli is in 11th, Lawson 12th, Albon 13th, Bortoletto is 14th, with Charles Leclerc down in 15th, and on his final attempt to get himself up and through into Q3, managed to do it for sprint qualifying. Can he salvage anything for the Scarlet Ferrari? 1.1 seconds adrift right now. The midfield runners are shining. Hülkenberg, Alonso, Behrman and Gasly, along with Hadjar and Sainz. That is basically the second half of the top 10, but they're all vying for improvements right at the close of this session. Alonso will come to the line first. He's currently in 8th, personal best through the first sector, personal best in the final sector, and he pops up into 5th.
Yeah, decent lap from Alonso, which is what we've come to expect this weekend. He really does love it around here. A lot of people improving their lap times. The bottom 5, the ones that are going to be eliminated, are going to change. Gasly pops himself safely up into P7. Now that's down to P8. Antonelli up into P4 with a really solid lap from him as well. So the two Mercedes, 4th and 5th right now, and things still changing with Bortoletto and Leclerc on interesting laps.
Leclerc's had a much better middle sector compared to his previous time around. Behrman's out, so too is Lawson. Will Hülkenberg get knocked out? He's also on a lap, but Leclerc will come to the line and gets himself through inside Q3, but will he hold it? He can't go quicker than Gasly, who holds 8th. Then comes Leclerc. Hülkenberg, can he get through into Q3? No, he can't. It's only 11th. That comes as a reprieve for Isaac Hadjar, because Gabriel Bortoletto won't do it either, and Alex Albon's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's out there, but he is not flying and not on a quick lap. So Hadjar just makes it through along with Charles Leclerc as we say goodbye to the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg in 11th, the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson in 12th, the Haas of Oliver Behrman in 13th, the Sauber of Bortoletto in 14th, with Alex Albon disappointing for the Williams with Sainz up in 7th. Albon bows out in 15th.
It's a real disappointment for Albon because there is pace in that car. Williams had a sort of half reasonable weekend so far in terms of what their paces looked like, so I didn't see what happened to Albon. It looked like he had to abort the lap, so probably made a mistake somewhere, but 15th is not good enough when your teammates up in P7. That's definitely not what they were hoping for from that car.
I'd like to know what Gasly is having for breakfast. How he's been able... It's not the first time he's done this either, from a car that looks like it is stuck to the back of the grid at times. You go back to Sao Paulo. He finished 8th in the sprint and got the final point. He did the same in the Grand Prix, got the final point, having qualified the last 2 races inside the top 10, while his teammate, who is much less experienced, as Bortoleto had a huge moment and lost a lot of time on his final lap, so that explains that coming out of turn 10. Same for Liam Lawson coming out of turn 15. Charles Leclerc being greeted by a plume of smoke as he went through the gravel too. But I think a round of applause for Pierre Gasly, ahead on pace of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, no, that was a decent lap. He did it in the early part of qualifying, didn't he? Then had that deleted.
And we are safe. That's very well done. Another Q3. Let's go. That's good. I'm very happy with that lap.
Very happy is Gasly. 3 consecutive Q3s for the Alpine.
Well, we were joking earlier on about did he have his lap time deleted because he cut a corner to get that lap time. Not on that occasion. That was a good lap, and it well deserving of him feeling as happy as you just heard him on the radio.
Hulkenberg then out, starts 11th for the 4th time in the last 6 Grand Prix. Has only had 1 top 10 start this year in a Grand Prix, and that came in Brazil. He's had a top 4 start in the sprint in Austin, but when it comes to Q3s, he's not really been a regular visitor, which is quite the opposite to what we saw from him last year when he was in the Haas, constantly getting that car through inside the top 10. That 1 lap pace in the Sauber when it comes to Grand Prix Saturday qualifying hasn't been quite there for Hulkenberg, just flirts with the top 10. Liam Lawson then started 12th more times than any other position in his career. It's the 7th time he lines up in 12th position. Ollie Behrman in 13th, but out-qualifies his teammate Esteban Ocon 14.9 this season. Behrman will be ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto in 14th. It is 14th, it's behind his teammate, but it is still the Brazilian's best start since Singapore, with Alex Albon confined to P15, and Albon who has yet to score a point in a Grand Prix since Monza about 7 races ago.
Right, so about 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes until Q3 starts, and this is the big one. This is the one that is so important. We keep saying how important it is, perhaps more so here than at many of the other races we visit around the course of the season. Not just because of what's at stake here. We're talking about a championship coming towards its final close, but this is a circuit that's very, very difficult to overtake on. So getting yourself to the front, which is exactly what Lando, what Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen will all be desperately trying to do, is super, super important.
Max Verstappen's won the race to the end of the pit lane as he lines up first, waiting for the green light, which will come on in 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So the top 10 shootout and the fight for pole just moments away, and it could be championship defining. We will have the 2 McLarens, we will have the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, we'll have the 2 Mercedes of Antonelli and Russell, we'll have the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Same too for the Williams of Carlos Sainz. Throw in Pierre Gasly's Alpine, a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, and a Racing Bulls of Isaac Hadjar. And you have quite a tantalising prospect there of a top 10. But crucially, pole, as you say, Mark, so important here. 370-metre run down from pole to turn 1 on the left-hand side for the Grand Prix. And 2 out of the 3 races here have been won from pole position. The last 3 have been won from the front row. Pole for Lando Norris will give him the easiest pathway through to race victory on Sunday and the crown of the Formula One World Championship. But Piastri will have a thing or two to say about that.
Yeah, so far Piastri, just by tiny, tiny margins, the more comfortable in this particular session. He's looking like he's hooking up the entire lap with that McLaren that's working so, so well. He's found a little bit of form on a personal level. He's got some confidence back in himself and in that car. It's all coming together for Piastri, but the gaps are going to be very small because Norris not very far behind him. We know that the car underneath Lando Norris is just as quick, just as capable of delivering a pole position time. And Max Verstappen, although although we've heard him complain a lot all the way through this weekend about the way his car's performing, he's still not very far away. He's still able to put a lap together that could easily get in the way of the two McLarens. There is everything to play for, and I don't think I can quite call it.
A minute to go until we get the green light on, with the red energy harvesting lights flashing on the rear wings of the Formula One cars that are lined up and ready to get going and head back out onto this 5.4 kilometre, 3.3 mile track. 16 turns, 6 to the left, 10 to the right. High-speed track, long main straight, medium to high-speed corners. We've travelled about 13,000 kilometres as the crow flies from Las Vegas last week to the Losail International Circuit this week, as the middle part of this triple header towards the end of the season. Takes a lot out of everybody, this, but with a championship on the line, now is the time to gather everything you have if you're Lando Norris, if you're Oscar Piastri, and if you're Max Verstappen.
It's been interesting to see the different strategy here, hasn't it, Harry? Verstappen and Norris have been at the end of the pit lane waiting for about 3 minutes, and Piastri's only just joined the back of the queue there, and Alonso's still in the pits, along with Russell, I think, in the garage, I should say. Usually there's a judgment to be made about taking the tyre blankets off and waiting at the end of the pit lane and losing tyre temperature, but I suspect that because the corners here are so fast and so demanding, and there's so many of them, that the strain that puts on the tyres means that you don't have to worry about losing the tyre temperature. Even so, it's interesting to see two such different approaches from two different drivers in the same team as McLaren.
Certainly is, as we finally get going for this final part of qualifying. 11 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. The top 10 shootout and the fight for pole is on. Both McLarens out on track, with Verstappen, Russell 2, Leclerc and Hadjar join them. Just Antonelli, Alonso, Sainz and Gasly remain in the pits as they feed out one by one, and this is the sound of Lando Norris. Can't afford in this session, Mark, can he, to do what he did in Q2 and leave it all right to the end, having had a lap time deleted for track limits.
No, exactly right. 11 minutes on the clock, but this is their out laps. This is where they're preparing tyres, getting everything up into the right temperature windows. It's going to deliver the maximum performance. What they want to do is they want to go early now, get a banker lap in, so they've got something that is at least representative. Then they'll have a little bit of time to come back into the pits, get themselves back under control, fresh set of tyres, and then right at the end of this session, when the circuit's at its quickest, you're going to see all 10 of these guys, but particularly these championship contenders, putting everything out there, leaving nothing on the table to try and maximise what they can get and get that all-important pole position.
Sound of Max Verstappen getting up to almost 300 kilometres an hour before he slams on the brakes for the right-hander of turn 1, being followed by Lando Norris as he too hits the brakes. The rear wing of the DRS slams shut and he heads on his way for these first flyers. And we've got debris on track, which looks like it could cause a bit of an issue. It's just on the inside as you're coming towards the right-hander of turn 3. It almost looked like a bit of advertising hoarding that had been kind of crumpled up, but I'd like to get another look at it.
Yeah, I haven't seen an instant where that's come from, but it was definitely there, yeah.
Something's gone on with Verstappen. He went out of the pits ahead of Norris and he's now behind him again, so it looks like he's bailed on this first lap.
Yeah, you're right. He's gone through. We haven't seen what, but there's no yellow flag out on track at the moment either, so I'm sure though drivers might be reporting that. Norris then still flying along with George Russell. Oscar Piastri has just started his lap as well. Everybody out on the circuit, all 10 drivers out on track under the lights here at the Losail International Circuit.
Yeah, here we go. It's been a really good, solid lap so far from Lando Norris. He's coming out the final corner now. We're going to get a lap time in just a moment as he crosses the finish line, takes the flag, and that is the new track record again, a 19.495. That's the fastest anyone's gone this weekend, and at the moment, that's Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri, not far behind him, is close.
Fastest of anybody through the middle sector is Oscar Piastri, but he's just under a tenth down overall at the moment on his teammate. What can Piastri find in these final stages? Just seeing Carlos Sainz reporting on the radio, I think I have plastic on my tyres, might explain that bit of debris we saw. We'll see. Piastri to the line, 35 thousandths of a second splitting him and Norris. Piastri behind Norris after the first flying laps, but Max Verstappen's going again, and out on track through the first sector and into the middle now as he carves his way through the right-hander of turn 7.
Yeah, so he wasn't happy with his first lap. He backed out of it. He's cooled things down. He's gone again, but he's already over a tenth down just out of the first sector of this lap. I think the second and third sectors have been really strong for Verstappen, so there's still opportunities to make that back. But the two McLarens have put in blistering laps that are going to be very hard to beat. Verstappen now 3 tenths down, so this is not working for him.
Norris with a 1:19.495. Then Piastri 35 thousandths of a second behind. Hadjar third, Sainz is fourth, Gasly is fifth. Race control incident involving Sainz noted, released in an unsafe condition. Verstappen crosses the line now, goes third, 4.5 tenths adrift though. Tell you who's putting together a decent lap is George Russell. Had a very good first sector and is now coming towards the final corner now. He put it on the front row for the sprint race. Russell, who's been driving so well all season long, can he disrupt this title fight? Right now, he's certainly throwing a spanner into the works, puts that Mercedes up into third place.
Yeah, there's definitely more time out of the Red Bull in the hands of Max Verstappen. For some reason, he hasn't been able to get that work. He hasn't felt entirely comfortable with it, but George Russell pops up ahead of him, so just behind the two McLarens. Antonelli not quite as good, into 6th. So Verstappen currently in 4th, but more worryingly, he's nearly half a second down on the lap time that Lando Norris was able to do.
That's 2 absolutely outstanding laps from those McLaren drivers, and it's looking like a private battle for pole between those two, and it's so close. 35 thousandths of a second between Norris and Piastri on that first run. Whoa, and that's Leclerc going off.
Charles Leclerc with a high-speed spin coming through turn 15. Just noticed he'd come into the pits, and that could have been calamitous for the Monegasque. But luckily, the walls are fairly far away from the track. He finds the gravel. He ruins the soft tyres he's on. And that just further underlines Ferrari's struggles this weekend. Now, we've just got a good slow motion look at a bit of plastic that was left on Carlos Sainz's tyre.
Plastic on my tires.
Yes, there's a sticker from the floor. Just do your lap,
Oh, I cannot drive. What the
So he was told to do his outlap. He cannot drive, and then I think the sticker flies off just as he comes through turn 3 and lays itself just on the white line on the inside.
What happens is the teams put stickers down in the car to sort of delineate where the car sits in the garage. It's all just a design feature, effectively. We've got a red flag while they go and collect that piece of debris on the circuit.
That's a very late red flag, because that piece of debris has been there since we started.
It is, but it's a real oversight, that, because we can see it on the edge of the circuit, so it is in a place that has to be collected. So the red flag is probably the right call, but you're right, it probably should have happened some time ago. The tyres, when they've gone onto that Williams, are going to be very hot. I'm just coming out the blankets. They're sticky, soft rubber. And what's happened is, as he's driven out the garage, it's just the sticker has adhered itself to the tyres rather than the floor. It's unwound it off the floor, unpeeled it, and it's stuck all the way around the tyres, which is why he said he can't drive. He's got no grip, because it's not the rubber in contact with the tarmac, which is what it should be. It was the sticker.
Well, the red flag gives everyone a moment to breathe. The clock stops at 5 minutes and 27 seconds. So everybody got a lap time in, with the exception of Charles Leclerc, who was rather having his own problems there. Lando Norris then sits on provisional pole. Absolutely nothing splitting him and Oscar Piastri in second. Russell is third. Max Verstappen, the other man in contention for this title, is down in 4th. Hadjar is in 5th, ahead of the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli. Alonso 7th, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine 9th. And last of those to set a lap time, Leclerc will have one final shot at putting one lap time on the board. Everyone will go again for one final flyer. Big time now for Oscar Piastri to find something to overhaul 35 thousandths of a second.
It feels to me like race control waited for the lull in traffic to throw the red flag, which, if you decide something needs a red flag, as in the circuit's not safe to continue, you can't wait for cars to stop running around for that to happen. If it's an unsafe condition, it's an unsafe condition, even if it's going to really interfere with somebody's flying lap, difficult though that would be. So that seems like a slightly odd timing decision to go and collect that piece of debris.
Yeah, I wonder if it was just enough off the racing line to allow everybody to to set their first lap times, and they just didn't want to be too disruptive. But I am inclined to agree with you. Q3 will resume at 10 o'clock local time, so in a couple of minutes, as the final peaceful moments occur for the drivers, eyes shut. There's actually a fair bit of work going on the rear right side of the Williams of Carlos Sainz. So responsible. It looks like a bit of gaffer tape going on. Is that, Mark?
It's kind of aluminium tape. It's like a heat-proof tape that they're putting onto the side pod.
Advanced gaffer tape.
Yeah. You often put it around areas where there's high temperatures, like the exhaust and things like that. But yeah, we've got a marshal running onto the circuit to the cheers of fans. Always the case, isn't it? Grabbing the piece of debris. So actually, it may not be a sticker off the floor. It might be some of that metallic tape. Maybe the team had that on the car and it's come off and stuck on. The tyres, as I said, very, very sticky. Maybe it's stuck to the tyre that way. But either way, it's a hazard for Carlos Sainz to be stuck onto his tyres, and it's a hazard to be on the circuit where people can run over it. So that's now done, and we've got just over a minute to go until we get going again.
Yes, the stewards will investigate that, though, after the session for Williams releasing Sainz in an unsafe condition. Right, about a minute to go then until we get the final part of qualifying back underway. Jenny.
Yes, Lando Norris sitting pretty at the moment in Q3. It's so close, though, as you said. And I was just with Lando Norris's parents before the session started. You could feel their nerves and their nervous energy as well. And Adam Norris, Lando's dad, was wearing unmatching shoes. So we had one in one colour and another shoe in the same style in a different colour. And I thought, OK, that's the vibe we're going with. So there's a lot of superstition, a lot of nerves and a lot of pressure on Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri right now.
That's cool. It's very Gen Z. You do that all the time, don't you, Mark? You wear odd shoes, but you're in keeping with your style.
I think because I can't find the other one.
Alex Wirtz famously used to use boots of a different colour, red and blue.
Really?
On opposite feet, yeah.
As a sort of luck thing? Or?
Yeah, it was a thing he did. After a while, he stopped doing it.
When it wasn't giving him any luck.
He's a very superstitious man, Alex Wirtz.
Another person you've worked with, Mark.
Yeah. Well, he would only ever get in from one particular side of the car. And he wanted his drinks bottle only passed from the other side. He had all of these things that you had to line up for him, otherwise his head's gone.
Of course, he's the chairman of the Grand Prix Drivers Association now, as well as a Toyota advisor, track designer, two-time Le Mans winner, and all-round good guy, Alex Wirtz, one of the top people in Formula One.
He certainly is. And 5 minutes on the clock as it resumes its countdown. We're back underway for Q3. No major rush out, timing to absolute perfection, they hope, for the 10 drivers that remain in this qualifying as we set the top 10 for Sunday's Grand Prix and find out who will be on pole position. Right now it's going the way of Lando Norris, who is looking to take his 8th pole of the season, has the joint most poles so far this year with Max Verstappen.
Actually, one more thing to say about Alex Wirtz. I think he had the worst possible testing accident you could have. There was some kind of statistic about that, wasn't it, Mark? You were probably there.
Paul Ricard.
Yeah, you put the tyres on the wrong way around or something?
No, it was that fateful car that never raced, the MP4 18. And my goodness, it was like an airplane crash, and luckily he was fine.
I think that was what happened. They put the tyre on the wrong side of the car. It was a Michelin tyre test, and he lost control. The tyre exploded basically on the way into what used to be the high-speed S's that started the lap at Paul Ricard, and he was very, very lucky because he hit the wall and then the front came off the chassis and his feet were exposed, and he said he was waiting for the next impact for his feet to get torn off. And he did impact the wall, but not forwards, fortunately.
And I think he got out of that car on that day and vowed never to drive it again.
Can you blame him? And was that the day he changed his shoes back to normal as well? Wouldn't blame him either way. 3.5 minutes on the clock. Engines roar into life. Cars heading out onto the track. The fight for pole position for the Qatar Grand Prix is on. It's advantage Lando Norris, who sits 22 points clear in the Drivers' Championship. Pole today would give him one big helping hand to sealing that first World Championship come the close of Sunday's Grand Prix. If he can take the Grand Prix victory on Sunday, he will be champion no matter where Piastri or Verstappen finish. But Oscar Piastri, who has form around here, he's finished in the top 3 in every Qatar race he's taken part in. Took his first F1 win here in the form of the sprint back in 2023. Qualified 4th here last year, but Norris qualified 3rd. It's going to be crunch time for the 2 McLarens, and can anybody else get in and amongst it? George Russell and the Mercedes have looked quick. Max Verstappen is quick but has been lacking those last couple attempts to really interfere, and Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari not in the fight for pole, in a fight with himself to set at least a lap time, currently without one.
Well, what we've seen in the early part of this Q3 session is 2 McLarens hooking up what is a fantastic car into a fantastic lap. They have maximised everything, and as Andrew said, nothing between the 2 of them. That lap time is blistering. I can't see anybody but a McLaren being on pole here. Lando Norris may have even already done enough to secure that position, but can Piastri drag just a few more thousandths out of that McLaren to get anything? If he can just get ahead of his teammate, he knows he's got a good shot of winning the Grand Prix tomorrow, which is exactly what he needs to do to keep this championship alive.
Lando Norris crosses the line and embarks on his final fly. Clear run down into turn 1, hits on the brakes, down through the gears, down to 4th gear, through the right-hander. We're immediately moving the car over to the right-hand side for the left-hander of turn 2. Oh, has to have a couple of goes on the steering wheel, and the lap time falls away.
He's bailed out, hasn't he?
Has he completely bailed out? I'm not sure.
It's not fast. Whether he's bailed or not, he's not fast at all.
No, he has bailed out. And that has all gone to pot for Lando Norris, who, well, if he can cool his tyres down enough, might get one final line. No, is he not going to do it?
There's no time, but his lap time that he set in the early part of the session is going to be so hard to beat. It's going to need Oscar Piastri to get an absolute lap of perfection. Lando could easily still be on pole here.
Piastri's coming towards the end of the first sector now, Harry.
Well, let's see what Piastri can do. 40 seconds on the clock. Norris not going to be able to set a lap time. Piastri fastest in the first sector, 0.003 of a second up on Lando Norris. Pivotal for Piastri in this qualifying. Welcome along to the last 13 seconds of qualifying. We think Lando Norris is out of this one. He's currently a provisional pole, but his final lap scuppered after a mistake. So all eyes on Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. Piastri is currently in second. 35,000ths of a second split him and pole position. Piastri's quicker in the middle sector, but Max Verstappen is fastest of anybody in the first sector. This could be pivotal for Piastri. It is! It's Piastri on pole for the Qatar Grand Prix by just over a 10th. But can Max Verstappen, who's struggled all weekend long so far, find anything at the close? To the line, he puts it in 3rd, and the top 3 are Piastri, Norris and Max Verstappen at the moment, but George Russell is flying out there too. But our championship protagonists are all within an inch of each other. Antonelli comes to the line in 5th. George Russell's bailed out of this one, I think, so that'll be that for qualifying. Oscar Piastri on pole position ahead of Lando Norris with Max Verstappen in 3rd. They are your 3 title contenders, all inside the top 3 ahead of the Qatar Grand Prix. George Russell will come to the line, had a poor sector 1 and time fell away from him. He starts just behind the top 3 in 4th, Antonelli 5th, Hadjar 6th, Sainz 7th, Alonso 8th, Gasly 9th, Leclerc 10th. But what a lap, Mark Priestley, from Oscar Piastri, and what a time for Lando Norris. to make a mistake on his final qualifying run.
Yeah, I mean, he did so well in the early part of the session to set a lap that broke the lap record, and we said it would take something spectacular to beat that, but that's exactly what we got from Oscar Piastri. The lap record shattered again, another 10th ahead of his teammate by Oscar. It's coming together for the Australian this weekend after such a long run of disappointment in that side of the McLaren garage. This keeps this fight alive as we head into a Grand Prix where the two McLarens are on the front row.
So did we get it?
Yeah, you got it. Just as you keyed up, Oscar. Pole position. They're like buses.
Let's go, baby. Good session, everyone. That was mega. Thanks, everyone.
A brilliant session. A brilliant weekend so far from Oscar Piastri, bouncing back after a poor run of form that has seen him fall 22 points now back from the championship leader, which is his teammate Lando Norris, but it will be a McLaren front row lockout ahead of the Qatar Grand Prix. And Oscar Piastri, well, he'll have a few meters advantage at the start, but it will be all about that start, won't it, Mark? Down into turn one, a title on the line, elbows out between the two McLaren teammates.
Yeah, it really will. Elbows out, but with an element of caution, because it's Oscar Piastri, which has got everything that he needs to try and gain. Lando Norris with everything that he's got to lose right now. He's the man with the big points advantage. He's got Max Verstappen right behind him, almost just a few meters back, just alongside. Going into turn one, we know how aggressive Verstappen can be at the start. Lando's got to keep an eye on what's going in front, but a very big eye on what's right behind him as well.
A little cheeky smile from Lando Norris, who's now out of the car in the Parc Fermé area. If Lando Norris, who starts second, wins the race on Sunday, he will become champion. Or if he outscores Oscar Piastri by 4 points and doesn't lose any points to Max Verstappen, Verstappen has to finish ahead of Norris in the points to stay in the fight at the very least, as the two teammates magnanimously shake hands, smiles, and a quick chat with the CEO of McLaren, Zak Brown, and the president of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, comes over as well to talk. But this is set up to be absolute box office for Sunday's Grand Prix. You're going to want to be here with us on 5 Sports Extra. We're going to have half an hour of build-up from 3:30 ahead of lights out at 4 o'clock under the lights here at the Losail International Circuit. And we're going to see, Mark, where it all went wrong for Lando Norris. He had the advantage. He had 35 thousandths of a second. That's a lifetime in Formula One. And after turn one, well, it rather went to pot.
Yeah, very early in the lap. He turned in, it seemed a little bit tentative in turn one. Got through that quite safely, though, but very quickly after that, a snap of oversteer in the middle of turn two, and that was it. He had to back her. We're so close to the limit. He needed to be so close to the limit to do anything that was going to improve on what he'd done before, that even that tiny little moment, for him, he already knew there was no point in continuing.
The top three, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, they are your title protagonists. As Max Verstappen now joins the two McLaren drivers in the Parc Fermé area. We'll hear from them shortly. Good result for the two Mercedes drivers as well, both inside the top 5. Hadjar really best of the rest with a brilliant top 5. But tell you what, why don't we hear from the main men from that qualifying? They're speaking with James Hinchcliffe.
Standing here with your top 3 for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Front row lockout for McLaren. Oscar, you said after the sprint race win, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Did you have to fix anything on this McLaren to find the pace that you did?
No. We left it pretty much the same, very, very minor tweaks here and there. But no, everything felt great all weekend. So yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah, it was really good. The team did a great job. Had a little bit of a question mark on which tyres we wanted to use, because I did a quick lap on the used set in Q2, and yeah, that threw a little bit of a spanner in the works because we didn't expect it to be so good. But no, Q3 was really good on the new, so very happy.
Race pace looked solid in the sprint, but 19 laps versus 57. This is a fast, physical racetrack. How physical do you think the Grand Prix is going to be tomorrow?
Pretty tough. I think with the 2 stops as well, or the lap limits, we're probably going to be pushing pretty hard the whole time. I don't think it's going to be as hot as a couple of years ago, so hopefully it's not as bad as that. But no, I'm expecting it to be a pretty tough race. You're pulling an insane amount of G-force around here and multiple times a lap. So it's hard work, but incredible fun.
Yeah, a couple guys you want to beat start right behind you as well. We'll start with Lando then. Lando P2, incredible first lap there, put you up at the top, but something happened on that second lap. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got a bit of understeer and was going to go off, so I had to abort, which is a shame. But it's the way it is. Oscar did a good lap and drove very well, and has been driving all weekend. So yeah, nothing to complain about. Just didn't do the lap, and so P2 for tomorrow.
Race pace again with the McLarens looks pretty solid. Is it going to be a race between the two of you guys, or do you think there's a threat from behind as well?
You never know. I mean, the first couple laps are always opportunities for everyone, but after there, I think it's probably going to be pretty straightforward for everyone too.
It was a great start, great first lap for you. Do you have any plans? Have you thought about how to maybe attack in lap one?
Not yet, no. Just did qualifying, so no. It's tonight we'll review some things and see what I can do better than I did this morning. But otherwise, no. I think we're in a good position. The car's been feeling good. I was much happier today than yesterday, so progress. But it's a long race tomorrow.
Absolutely, Max. What a turnaround for you guys. You must be so proud of this team after the struggles yesterday. Are we done with the porpoising? Are we done with the bouncing? Is that Red Bull behaving a bit better now?
Yeah, I think this qualifying was a little bit better, even though, of course, we were still quite far off, let's say like that. But at least I felt a little bit happier, but still some limitations that don't allow us to push harder around the lap. But at least we are P3, and yeah, we are, let's say, starting on the second row, and it creates better opportunities, let's say like that, because we know that it's quite hard to pass around here. So yeah, we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Realistically, it's a bit tough this weekend. Just not being what I wanted it to be so far, but we'll see what we can do tomorrow.
We heard you on the radio in Q1 talk about some issues, downshifting, was making the back of the car bounce. Did you get that fixed by Q3? Is that everything that you had, or was there still maybe some pace in it?
No, it's still not amazing, let's say that.
Fair enough. All right, we'll head back to the pole sitter. Heading into tomorrow, it's a big day, it's a big race. Championship sits at 22 points. Is it win or bust for you at this point?
Pretty much. I'll try my best, starting from the best spot. So try and do some more of what I did today in the sprint and see what we can do.
There you go. Well, best of luck. Here's your top three: Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen.
Win or bust for Oscar Piastri, but he starts from the best seats in the house. And Lando Norris's championship charge on Sunday, well, the pressure rises not only on him, but all three of our title protagonists make up the top three of the grid for the Qatar Grand Prix. Piastri on pole, Lando Norris alongside, with Max Verstappen in third. What a qualifying. We're going to be talking all about it in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be on BBC Sounds for you to enjoy a little later on. But my thanks to Jenny on the ground, to Andrew and to Mark alongside. We will be back for what will be a race to tune in for, the 23rd Grand Prix of the year. 57 laps around the Losail International Circuit for the Qatar Grand Prix. It will be on 5 Sports Extra, and we'll be on air building up half an hour before lights out at 3:30 ahead of the race start at 4 o'clock under the lights. Hope you can join us for it. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.